Deep reflection on life has always been the key to unlocking new heights, and it's precisely this core idea that underpins the intriguing journey we are about to explore. Our story begins with Barbara Aaron W., an American political activist and researcher who posed a challenging question. Why do poor people often remain stuck at the bottom layer of society without finding a way out? Determined to do more than observe from a distance, she decided to jump right into real-life experiences. With only $1,000 in hand, she moved to 6 different cities, taking on diverse jobs such as sales clerk, janitor, caregiver for the elderly, and various other manual labor roles. Throughout this process, she encountered not only countless hardships, but also every small, precarious detail of life. Renting cheap, run-down houses, surviving on meager meals, and working endlessly day and night. Yet, at the end of each month, no matter how hard she tried, she simply couldn't save any money at all. Her savings remained stubbornly at zero, leaving her frustrated, helpless, and seeing no way out. It was precisely during these days of being stuck that she arrived at a crucial insight. The poor have to endure low-level suffering, the perpetual grind of food, rent, utilities, and essential bills. These burdens keep them perpetually busy, yet yield no better outcome. She realized that the poor rarely have an exit route from this loop, because all of their energy is funneled into meeting the most basic needs. She described it as a kind of busyness system, trapping people so that they cannot break free. This kind of suffering, she emphasized, saps a person's energy without helping them grow. By contrast, individuals with a broader perspective, who are willing to pay the price for higher-level suffering, such as devoting themselves to intellectual pursuits, cultivating in-depth thinking, and honing advanced skills, are the ones who grasp the opportunities to change their fates. Furthermore, Barbara Aaron W. pointed out that precisely because the poor exhaust themselves with trivial yet unavoidable tasks, they have no space or strength left for deep introspection or self-valuation. Consequently, they repeat lifestyle and work patterns that remain unproductive. From this conclusion, she hoped that people would recognize the nature of this cycle sooner rather than later, so as not to waste years of their lives in a vortex of scarcity. Around the same time Barbara conducted her research, the term working poor began to gain attention in the 1990s, describing a segment of the labor force who give all their time and effort, indeed depleting themselves, yet never escape poverty. They resemble donkeys tethered to a mill, endlessly trudging in circles, ever more fatigued, but never taking a single step forward. Warren Buffett, one of the most successful investors in history, also discussed a version of these working poor within major financial companies. Some people work from sunrise to sunset without a break, then drive an additional 3 hours just to take on a night shift, seizing every moment to make ends meet. Even on weekends, they throw themselves into part-time jobs from 9 a.m. to 9 p.m., and coming home at midnight utterly exhausted, only to force themselves awake at dawn for yet another shift. Despite never taking a day off the entire month, their lives remain stagnant. Buffett observed that one reason for this stagnation is that these people only know how to work tirelessly, never pondering how to increase efficiency or develop their skill sets. Such drudgery can sometimes form a closed loop, leading to burnout rather than breakthrough. If you only keep your head down, toiling away, you risk toppling into life's deep pit. Not everyone considers, how can I work smarter instead of just harder? A friend of mine, upon graduating, joined a bank as a teller. He believed, the more you suffer, the likelier you are to succeed. So he threw himself into endless work, leaving little to no time for anything else. Each day he dealt with hundreds of customers from morning until night, often too swamped even to grab a quick sip of water. During his scant breaks, he relentlessly studied basic professional knowledge and transaction protocols, counted cash until his fingers cramped, practiced professional smiling in the mirror until his cheeks seized up, and typed on his keyboard until the roommate complained he couldn't sleep. Thanks to such feverish dedication, he gained favor with his superiors. Yet a few years later, when the job became repetitive and he sought to explore fresh horizons, he discovered that his skill set was confined mostly to counting money, recording figures, and performing routine transactions, fundamental tasks that lacked the weight needed to seize opportunities in a competitive labor market. This realization led to regrets about misdirected effort. If only, he lamented, I had used my time in the bank to delve deeper into finance, technology, or other high-potential sectors, and taken more advanced certifications. I'd have far more options now. His story exemplifies the fact that while hardship may be indispensable, it must be hardship that paves the way for genuine progress, rather than the sort that bogs you down and halts your journey. The concepts of low-level and high-level suffering have been touched upon by multiple authors and thinkers. The writer Zhang Defen once divided endurance into two categories. First is blind, unillumined suffering that brings no awakening. Second is conscious hardship, capable of reshaping a person's destiny. Low-level suffering might be compared to physical struggles, working yourself to the bone, scrimping on every meal, renting cramped rooms, and pushing yourself just to survive each day. This approach only covers the most fundamental survival needs without opening a door to skill enhancement or deeper insight. People become so consumed with saving every spare penny, eating the cheapest meals, wearing the oldest clothes, and overexerting themselves, yet remain stuck in place. This type of ordeal appears everywhere, in those constantly pulling extra shifts, waking before sunrise and returning home well after midnight, yet still juggling the same money woes every month. They're trapped in what the writer calls unillumined suffering, yielding zero breakthroughs in cognition or advanced abilities. In contrast, high-level suffering involves devoting time to in-depth analysis, examining the core issues, and figuring out how to boost efficiency. One accomplished entrepreneur once questioned, "Why is it that out of 1,000 participants in the same industry, only 5 make it to the top?" He found his answer when his own company surpassed 100,000 employees. His discovery: people will do almost anything to avoid serious thinking. They look for shortcuts, ready-made formulas, or standardized processes that spare them from tackling difficult questions. Meanwhile, that tiny percentage who do rise to the top actively engage with challenges. They pose questions to themselves and then experiment with possible answers, never hesitating to suffer through the mental grind necessary for improved solutions, rather than bury themselves in endless paperwork or rote tasks. Another excellent example is Ngo Quan, author of Global History of Technology, who devoted countless hours merely to asking, why? He didn't simply stay up all night typing away incessantly. Instead, he researched, interviewed professors and specialists, and enrolled in supplemental courses on the history of science and technology. He examined each piece of reference material meticulously, spending hours or even days connecting ideas, tearing them down, and rebuilding them in a coherent structure. It was this high-level suffering that produced a well-received and praised publication. It unified historical development in a more understandable framework. This contrasts starkly with people who avoid thinking at all costs, and thus let themselves become mere hamsters on a wheel, perfectly epitomized by Robert Kiyosaki's depiction of the rat race. They keep running indefinitely, but never leave the cage. This is precisely the manifestation of staying in the realm of unproductive, low-level suffering, rather than choosing the enlightening, high-level path. If we envision life as a long road, then low-level suffering is like stepping on sharp pebbles that bruise your heels, causing each step to be painful, but failing to strengthen your legs or guide your direction. Everyone has finite energy, and when all that vitality drains away because of inconsequential drudgery, very little remains for intellectual growth or creative spark. In the classic Record of a Worldly Journey by Feng Menglong of the Ming Dynasty, there is a couplet stating, "If you cannot bear suffering, you cannot stand at the forefront." Yet many people interpret this simplistically, believing that any form of hardship, regardless of whether it's fruitful, will automatically be rewarded with success. They entrap themselves in perpetual hustle and rarely pause to reflect. Is this the kind of hardship that will truly empower me? Most of humanity spends their lives in fruitless exertion without developing more sophisticated skills or vision. A psychology professor at Harvard University once emphasized, "To ascend to the upper tiers of society, you must endure high-level suffering. Part of that high-level pain is intellectual labor. Rather than obsess over immediate manual tasks and monthly bills, one needs to look up and think strategically about the future, about ways to pivot and elevate personal value. For instance, devoting time to study a brand new field can initially feel excruciating. The material might be dense and monotonous. The mind resists the extra strain. But such adversity is precisely what forces us to innovate and persevere. Eventually, we acquire expertise that most people lack. While others remain huddled in overcrowded commuter trains or funneling most of their paychecks into rent, we might manage to cultivate specialized capabilities that let us work remotely or earn a significantly higher income. We might look around and notice that some of our friends have already purchased cars or homes, living the life we only dream of while we're still pinching pennies. Often, it's not that we're lazier in physical labor, but rather that we don't invest in deeper thinking or focused learning. We assume that the more I work, the more I earn. Yet sometimes doing the right things beats doing more things. Strategic thinking is the prime differentiator between people who prosper and those stuck in a slump. George Bernard Shaw famously posed the question, have you ever spent 3 days just to figure out what you really want out of life? This inquiry jolts millions into awareness. We often fail to ask ourselves the fundamental, what do I truly expect from my life? Or, am I on the right road to achieve it? Instead, we become mired in ceaseless busyness. It's chilling to realize one day that you're simply a boat adrift, carried along by the current, with no say in where you'll land. One frequent example involves creative jobs, such as writing or design. I once knew a friend who specialized in advertising copy. He always seemed overwhelmed by deadlines, yet, if you paid attention to his process, you'd see that he mostly recycled old writing approaches. Whenever his boss complained, "This isn't right, it's not impactful enough," or "it lacks creativity," he would just keep revising without dedicating a moment to pinpoint the problem. He never asked, "Where specifically is it off target? Which angle should I change?" With no concrete feedback, he'd end up exhaustingly reworking draft after draft, yet still arrive at a similar outcome. When asked why he didn't take time to clarify, he'd respond, "I have no time. My deadlines are way too tight." In the end, he found himself drained, losing both passion and fresh ideas, perpetually criticized for subpar results. This is precisely how low-level suffering wears a person down. There is hardship, to be sure, but no actual professional or mental growth. The person eventually burns out, like a candle running out of wax. Were he to spend those hours delving into the reasons for his boss's dissatisfaction, improving his storytelling techniques, or exploring the target audience's psyche, his initial struggles might have increased, but in the long term, he'd likely reap far more substantial gains. Many people miss that. The root issue isn't a lack of drive, but a lack of the right kind of drive. As someone once remarked, if there's a God and humans make an effort to think, then God will show a sign. If they don't, God won't even bother. Analogously, in Alice in Wonderland, Alice stands at a fork in the road, not knowing her destination, making either choice equally pointless. Thinking is thus the compass, the guiding star for every action. Absent it, all becomes random chance. The same applies to life and business. We certainly need firefighters to extinguish flames once they start, but it's even more vital to have individuals who think ahead about fire prevention. That prevention demands time, planning, and mental engagement. Without calm, thorough consideration, we end up dealing with chaos and inefficiency. Nonetheless, deep thought entails solitude and can be mentally taxing, so taxing that many people balk and prefer to just do it or follow a standard procedure, as it appears simpler. But that route typically leads to a bland existence, always busy yet largely unproductive. Conversely, those who truly invest in mental work might initially move more slowly and expend more energy, but eventually they break away from the pack. The adage, "better to suffer once than to suffer indefinitely," resonates here. Suffer implies wrestling with intellectual challenges. Suffer indefinitely refers to an unending cycle of exertion with minimal results. Enduring high-level suffering also necessitates another crucial element: self-discipline. Its importance is widely discussed across internet forums, but only a handful can genuinely incorporate it into their lifestyle. Self-discipline means willingly imposing rules on yourself, monitoring your daily schedule, controlling your impulses, and channeling your energy toward larger goals rather than short-lived pleasures. A friend of mine spiraled into chaos during the pandemic lockdown. He stayed up nights gaming, slept through the day, ate irregularly, and all but forgot his professional competencies. When his workplace reopened, he was utterly unprepared. His concentration wavered, his output dwindled, and his boss frequently reprimanded him. He confided in me, saying that if he had only stuck to a healthier routine and spent even a fraction of his lockdown time on daily study, he wouldn't be floundering so badly now. Indeed, every temporary comfort demands a future price. Laziness or indulgent distractions, like endless gaming and binge-watching, come at a steep cost later. Meanwhile, another friend who also stayed home during lockdown refused to succumb to early retirement. He read professional texts, exercised, learned new skills online, and eventually returned to work with a solid advantage over colleagues who had wasted their lockdown. Stephen Gray once shared that initially he aimed to do 30 minutes of push-ups daily, but found it impossible. So he scaled down, just one push-up a day. Of course, once he completed one push-up, it felt manageable enough that he might do 2 or 3. Over time, a routine formed, and it got to the point where even outside designated workout times, he would spontaneously drop to do a set of push-ups. This principle applies to much of life. Never chase perfection from the start. Just take the first step, even if it's only 3 minutes. That's the core concept. If a person still can't manage that, it only indicates that life's slaps haven't hurt badly enough yet. Everyone who achieves success has, at some point, lived in a constant state of rigorous self-inflicted discipline. This self-punishment eventually evolves into a habit, forging an unwavering confidence that seeps into the bone, leading to a kind of financial or personal freedom. You either choose to be harsh on yourself now, or wait for life to be brutal to you later. Comparatively, I find it less painful to endure my own discipline than to be slapped around by the world. Life's cruelty often cuts deeper. As the proverb goes, the road may be long, but you'll get there if you keep moving. Whether it's running 3 kilometers every day, reading 1 book every week, or preparing 1 public talk each month, self-discipline might not yield immediate massive changes, but these incremental efforts accumulate to immense power over time. High-level suffering in the form of self-discipline is worth embracing, and you should consciously opt for it. Furthermore, maintaining reading and learning habits means enduring the hardship of solitude. I once saw a social media user admit, "I choose to suffer the pain of reading. I realize short videos are more entertaining, offer quick fun, and reduce stress more effectively. But if I succumb to them, I'll waste a lot more of my time and energy, and I refuse to accept a diminished version of myself." Today, most people recognize the importance of studying. Countless parents go to great lengths, sometimes even moving or divorcing, to ensure better educational environments for their children. Many kids feel lost if they can't keep up academically, while others who diligently study face mental strain. It begs the question, why must we endure the misery of studying if it seems so daunting? Some say, the books you've read shape your temperament and stature. They are like the meals you ate as a child, gradually becoming part of your blood and flesh, influencing your worldview. A thank you letter from Dr. Huang Kwok Bin of the Chinese Academy of Sciences once became an online sensation. In it, he wrote, "I traveled a long, arduous road, bearing much hardship, to present this thesis before you." Dr. Huang Kwok Bin was born into extreme poverty. He caught fish and eels, raised pigs, and herded buffalo to afford his schooling. He walked barefoot on scorching ground in the summer, wore thin, ragged clothes in the winter, and often attended class in wet clothing. None of that deterred him. Instead, academic progress became the greatest joy and motivator in his life. He understood clearly that only by embracing the hardship of learning would his future become less burdensome. Ultimately, with unwavering determination, he entered the Chinese Academy of Sciences for higher studies and now works at Tencent's Artificial Intelligence Lab, tackling lofty new challenges. His success highlights the powerful link between academic effort and personal growth. On a TV show, several teenagers left school early to enter factories. They toiled in hot workshops, performing repetitive tasks, drenched in sweat, eating meager meals, and working up to 11 hours a day. They slept in cramped dorms, 8 per room, and had to line up just for a shower. One boy confessed that he used to think studying was grueling, but now he realized factory life was far worse. He couldn't take it. He never anticipated that leaving school would push him into a reality even harsher. Those who abandon formal education too soon end up with no diploma, no family support, and only menial, mundane roles. They drift from factory to factory with meager wages, always teetering on unemployment. Many only realize much later that lacking in education narrows their life options significantly. Meanwhile, an online poll once asked people about their greatest regret in life. Ranked at the top was, not getting into a good university when I was young, which led to a stagnant life afterward. One pattern emerges. If you choose comfort during the prime years for learning, you'll likely pay for it with lifelong mediocrity. Modern society evolves quickly, so learning only in youth isn't enough to sustain you for decades. Lifelong learning might be intimidating at first, but ultimately, it serves to help you meet an even better version of yourself in higher places. So, what's there to be sad about? For many, the safe harbor of life becomes a comforting cage, preventing personal advancement. Life doesn't always go smoothly, yet if you boldly tackle adversity and willingly accept difficulty, you're far more likely to forge a path to success. High-level suffering means boldly facing challenges, breaking your own limits, and never ceasing to refine who you are. Such resilience is a positive, necessary attitude to fulfill your potential and take charge of your destiny. Unlike trivial ordeals, high-level suffering brings deeper rewards, continued growth, more opportunities, and new horizons. One day, you may look back and see that the determination and persistence you once invested have become your most valuable assets. Many people treat the idea of living in your comfort zone as if it's a permanent resting place, yet it can also be the shackles confining personal progress. Life inevitably throws curveballs, and only by having the courage to confront them can we truly evolve. Embracing high-level suffering means you're ready to face trials, daring to go beyond your limitations, consistently improving in skills and mindset. That's the constructive, forward-looking stance that enables you to realize your own worth and retain autonomy in life. In comparison to trivial hardship, high-level suffering not only poses bigger challenges, but also yields greater value. It fosters continual maturation and unlocks more opportunities. Eventually, upon looking back, you might realize that all the sweat and perseverance you invested years ago have turned into your greatest treasures for the journey. As someone said, you shouldn't let yourself get too comfortable, because comfort itself can be problematic. Only by repeatedly challenging yourself can you deliver an outstanding personal narrative on life's vast stage. Stories about people who overcame tremendous adversity, and those who succumbed to it, are equally instructive. They remind us that you must know how to choose your form of suffering. If you endure trivial pain endlessly, it can erode your ambition and cause you to doubt your capability to reach happiness. You might exclaim, "I've already borne so much, yet still see no improvement in my life. I must have reached my limit." But in truth, you haven't selected the right sort of pain to endure. A psychology professor from Harvard once stated in a lecture, "To become upper class, you must endure the high-level pain that elevates your value. Only by proactively embracing such challenges can life become smoother." Through rigorous thinking and willing yourself to confront the hardships of the mind, you'll become aware that while you are still boarding the subway at rush hour, counting coins to buy fruit, worried about surpassing your tiny grocery budget, other people, who started the same place as you, have already bought houses or cars and are living a life you only aspire to. Is it because you didn't try as hard as they did? Not necessarily. Besides working diligently, they also made time to think deeply and endure the mental struggles that spur innovation and growth. George Bernard Shaw posed an interesting question. Life is about 30,000 days long. Have you spent even 3 of them reflecting on what you truly love? Many of us get so caught up in the day-to-day hustle that we forget to ask ourselves if our direction is right, if we really want to reach the destination this path offers, or how many alternative routes might exist. Working hard without thinking is like a ship floating whichever way the current runs. You may expend a huge amount of energy but remain adrift. It's crucial to realize that thorough contemplation precedes any truly impactful work. Absent it, things fall into disorder. Both work and life require firefighters for emergencies, but they also need fire prevention experts who strategize beforehand. The difference between scraping by and thriving often lies in whether we commit to the mental strain of planning and anticipation, which can indeed be more daunting than physical labor. Beyond academics, high-level suffering can also manifest as a willingness to face risks and make necessary changes to expand one's horizons. Many people dread change because they're wary of losing their comfort zone, fear feeling lonely, or worry they won't adjust well to a new environment. However, letting these fears dictate your path results in the familiar patterns of low-level suffering, financial stress, menial tasks, and repeated routines that drain your soul. Conversely, daring to learn a new discipline, investing in a training course, or testing yourself in a different role may initially be overwhelming, like entering uncharted waters. But that very struggle can serve as a bridge to a better place. After all, life is a sequence of decisions. Some have put it this way: either you actively choose the suffering that leads to growth, or you passively accept the greater suffering that life imposes. Opting for high-level hardship means refusing to let each day be a mindless repeat of the last. You want to sharpen your skills, refine your vision, and step outside your comfort zone to create new value. Imagine a young mother who, after giving birth, resolves to maintain her career, continuing to learn online or attend Zoom workshops, studying a foreign language, or acquiring marketable skill sets. She juggles childcare, family duties, and personal study, which leaves her with minimal time for leisure and cuts short her sleep. It's undoubtedly a difficult kind of suffering. But years later, when her child grows older, she re-enters the workforce in a far stronger position. Her knowledge is up to date, her spirit is resilient, and she hasn't lost her footing in the professional realm. Meanwhile, those who chose to remain in a cozy bubble often find themselves disconnected from workplace reality. Indeed, the world opens doors for those who have prepared. When an appealing vacancy unexpectedly arises, who will be qualified to fill it? Obviously, the person who spent time honing relevant skills. If you're the one complaining, "I just can't get ahead. Where are my opportunities?" Yet you refuse to upgrade yourself, then even if an opportunity shows up, it'll slip right through your fingers. High-level suffering necessitates intentional effort, sweat, and mental focus that ultimately yield tangible accomplishments. Low-level suffering, by contrast, forces you to grind away at small tasks, eventually sapping your strength without changing your socioeconomic standing. In the end, looking back on this journey, we see that embracing high-level suffering is the true path to transforming one's destiny, while low-level suffering keeps you stuck, slowly depleting your resources and eroding your confidence. Barbara Aaron W. showcased a vivid illustration. No matter how many hours she put in across 6 different cities with rock-bottom wages, it was never enough to get ahead. Warren Buffett observed those who slog through relentless days in finance yet never progress, because they fail to learn new skills or increase efficiency. The stories of the bank teller, the advertising writer, and the teenagers leaving school all highlight that if we only bury ourselves in work without reflection, if we are industrious with our hands but slothful with our minds, we enclose ourselves in a wall of low-level labor. By contrast, those who tackle the hardship of intellect, self-discipline, and lifelong learning gradually demolish these barriers. Even though they might endure sleepless nights, lose out on leisure, or feel lonely at times, in the end, their investment bears fruit. They earn higher incomes, land more rewarding jobs, or simply enjoy greater freedom with their schedules. This is the deeper meaning behind suffering to succeed. Pain isn't for show or bragging rights. It's about leveling up. Life is too short to spend it as a donkey grinding at the mill. You can either remain in that loop or choose to steer the ship yourself. If you feel trapped in the cycle of low-level hardships, pause. Dare to look up and ask, can I convert this suffering into a stepping stone? For you alone decide the manner in which you endure pain. May the stories of both failures and successes, involving choices that seem small but lead to massive outcomes, inspire you to begin. Remember, when you suffer in the right direction, life will eventually reward you. Thank you for reading to the very last word. If you find this content meaningful, don't hesitate to share it with friends or loved ones. And please stay tuned for more insights on finances, personal growth, and stepping closer each day to financial freedom, happiness, and deeper fulfillment in life.